You're listening to Shoe In, covering the ins and outs of all things footwear, from sneakers to heels, loafers to slippers, and every type of shoe in between. Brought to you by the FDRA, the Footwear Industries Association focused on retail, trade, politics, and fashion, helping create and enhance conversations on all things footwear. And now your footwear insiders, Matt Priest and Andy Polk.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Shoe In Show, the Footwear Industries podcast. Matt, how are you doing today?
I'm doing well, Andy. How are you, my friend?
I'm awesome. It is heating up out there across the country, and one of the hottest topics in our industry.
Ooh, nice.
Yeah, you like that?
Yeah, I do.
Slide that right in. Is sustainability. And we've talked about this a lot on this show. We've talked about a lot of other events. Matt's favorite term for sustainability is the Wild Wild West. I think he's been watching a lot of Will Smith movies from the 90s.
One of the two.
But it's true. It's such a big term. And what we found, having worked on it pretty intensely in the last couple of years, is every company looks at it a little bit differently. Every company works on it a little bit differently, which is great. I mean, there's a lot of lessons to be learned from other people as they go through it. Well, the challenge that we found is that it's kind of piecemeal and there's not a lot of strategy to what people are doing and why, because it's still this new thing. So obviously we've had some events on this to help people. Last year. Our digital shoe sustainability summit attracted, over 200 people from around the world to try to hear new ideas and hear leaders talk about it. And what we realized was it's great to have that conversation, but what we're lacking is a strategy. How do we have a holistic approach? How do we structure it that our companies actually, thrust things forward instead of grabbing here or there good things? Like, how do we package it all together and make it really work? So what we do at FDRA is we obviously pull people together, but we also pull leading experts across the industry together to kind of look at things and the way we can better educate the industry. And one of those people that we always work with, and is no stranger to the Shoe In Show, is Nicolene Van Enter. She is the founder and director of the Footwearists, which is a network of experts in the footwear industry trying to figure out new ways to innovate and help the industry thrust forward into this 21st century. And one of the big things they've been working on for a long time now is sustainability. So Nico, welcome back to the show. Hope you're doing well. I know you've moved to a whole new country.
Speaking of hot countries, I'm probably in one of the hottest countries right now. People from the show only hear me, but you could see me sweat actually here. I switched off my ventilator because, of course, you don't want to have the sound in your podcast. But I live in a very nice house, but it's very European, so there's no air conditioning. So,
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah.
so
Well,
That is not sustainable. I'll tell you that much.
That's actually very sustainable. Of course, this does wonders for my ecological footprint.
I'm sure. Sweating it out for
Definitely.
sustainability. Good for you.
I'm told a bit younger, so hey.
You got your own sauna. You just didn't realize it was your own house.
Yoga the entire day.
Listen, I'm excited to let people know, and we've marketed this just a tad bit, but the 2021 Digital Shoe Sustainability Summit, we're partnering with you and the Footwearists to put on what I think is the most important summit we've put on in many, many years. And it's because of what I said in the intro is we see a lot of companies, kind of grabbing at straws here or there. Maybe they grab this material, that material. There's nothing holistic about a lot of people's approach to things. And I think I'm really excited to have you on board. And we're going to talk a little bit today about what that summit's going to bring out, who you've been talking to, and the content. But I'll get your thoughts right off the bat around the strategy. It just seems to me I want to hear your opinion. We just seem to lack a coherent strategy around this. And if we don't have a strategy, I'm not really sure we're going to take positive steps continuously forward in this environment.
That's indeed totally true. And we've also taken that into account with this summit when we built the program. Like you say, most people are just doing little things piecemeal. What material should I replace this with that or this with that? And it's not that that's bad, but of course, that's far from this being a strategy. So also in the summit where we have 3 sections, we intentionally don't start with materials. Materials comes at the end. We're starting from the bigger picture, explaining to people how to design for a life cycle, how to look at all the different waste streams they have, how to minimize that, how to recycle. So we have a very logical program where we start from the bigger picture, and then it basically trickles down to the more detailed things such as material.
Now, Nico, you've been doing this for quite some time, and you've seen kind of all different types of approaches. Now, where we sit in 2021, as you kind of look back, has there been a lot of progress? Are we moving in the right direction? Do you feel more positive about how the industry is responding, or are there times where you just feel like we're spinning our wheels as an industry?
If you would have asked me this question before COVID, and I think we even talked about it in a previous podcast where I was not so positive, not really thinking that people were doing a lot. And frankly, as such, I do feel that COVID has paid us a service here, where I've been talking for such a long time about doing local manufacturing, or at least decentralized manufacturing, local for local. And now finally, people are asking for that. I also do a lot of consulting. This is like the main question I get basically since the end of last year. And for me, it's fine that people are now looking at that more from a perspective of risk mitigation. So it's not so much about sustainability, but by basically decentralizing production and not focusing everything only on Asia, they are basically forced to become more sustainable. Because what I see in my daily practice, if you take a shoe that you're now making in Asia or maybe in South America, and you want to, for instance, make that same shoe either in the US or you want to make it in Europe, then price-wise, it's going to be more expensive. And then instead of saying, oh, we're going to just rip everything off the shoe, you might as well start redesigning that shoe from a different perspective and taking into account that we can automate a lot of things in the production and be less dependent on manual labor. And all these things, people often don't realize that all these things also help greatly with sustainability. So, and that's also definitely something that we touch on in the summit, because a lot of people are looking at that and how do we do that? And we can give them a lot of very practical pieces of advice on how to handle that.
Yeah, I think it's important because we've been talking for a while about so many people see sustainability as a cost, right? It's a cost. Well, I got to pay more. Well, in actuality, it's cost savings. People are thinking about it absolutely wrong. And that's the summit. I hope will bring that out to say, actually, if you do this differently, and here's an expert who can show you how to do it, or here's a leader that's already done it. So in our programming, not only are we doing trainings to explain kind of intricate details of things that are occurring in sustainability, but it's actually a case study that's built on top of that, of saying, okay, we're not just saying how, this is theoretical, this is actually happening, and here it's how it's happening. And we had during our supply chain summit we just finished up recently, I had Jim Salzano from Jones and Vining on, and he was talking about a new component, new material that they were launching with a brand that was going to increase comfort and flexibility and all these attributes everybody wants. And because it's more sustainable, it's like 30% less. So we're talking like we're at the epic where sustainability is optimization, it is innovation, and it is cost reductions if you do it right and you have the strategy. So as Nico said, the structure for the summit is going to be starting off with kind of circularity and recycling and waste management. So how do we clean up our mess? How do we think about our waste streams? Second session, it goes into design, development, production issues. So like process issues, which is so important at our factory level, but also at the very start. And then it goes to materials. So the last session is materials. So it's 3 sessions. The videos drop Monday during that week of all the different interviews that Nico has conducted, of, again, talking to an expert and then talking and giving a case study of that. So, and then every Wednesday of the session, we do a live webinar with industry leaders and an expert. And then at the end of that, we flip to a Zoom meeting where we actually have everybody get on and have a discussion. So they can ask questions, we can engage. And we've really found that format of opening it up from a webinar into this kind of working group session that we usually have, we get really good debates, and we don't know where it's going to go, which is kind of fun. That's exciting
also for the people in the debate. So,
yeah. So Nico, I've teed up the format. You've already conducted a lot of interviews with different people. What are some interesting things that are coming out of this that people are going to hear
Yeah.
at the summit.
Well, let me first also explain before I get into that when indeed we drop videos every Monday,
Yep.
those videos are indeed expert interviews and case studies, and it also includes a full class program where we have short videos about essentially circularity 101, where you really sum up, okay, these are things that you can do in terms of strategy. Then we talk with an expert about that and have their case study. So, for instance, just yesterday finished a fantastic talk with Jess from TEVA that you've had before also on your podcast, talking about the Forever program. Here we go, since this is a summit really specialized on that subject, we go more in depth even into their waste management program. It was fantastic. Also, how open people are. Everybody who I'm interviewing is very open with sharing the details that they have. So she talks at length about how many shoes they've been able to recycle, what that means, how they are financing this program, because this is, of course, what a lot of people want to understand.
Right.
And that's also super interesting and relates to something that you said earlier, where also in their case, even though, yes, it's still a cost now, she was explaining how they are really in a very smart and holistic and logical way, spreading those costs over different departments. Because if this is something that, so for instance, their consumers had really told them, we want you to recycle. So now that they do, they see that engagement of their consumers. But that's also a marketing tool then. So it's also logical that part of that cost is on the marketing department. And
Wow.
that's what I thought were real eye-opening things and very practical advice for people who are struggling with how to do this. Because, of course, when we designed and produced those shoes, there's no margin in our cost structure for recycling. That's something that we indeed might think of later. And now that they have such an overwhelming success with their program and got way more scale than they ever dreamt of, basically, in what they had planned, now they can really start thinking, really taking the materials back for their own shoes, right? And in the podcast, she was talking about how it's used for carpet backing and playgrounds that we see a lot in recycling. But now, since it's already achieving scale within 3 months only, they can really start considering, oh, let's take that back. And how can we then indeed save cost also on our product development? Because if that is, again, raw material for our footwear, then in the long run, indeed, it's going to save us a lot of cost. So all these very practical experiences with people explaining how does that work. Same thing what you were talking about with Jones and Vining. One thing that we see in general also with Footwearists is that basically a lot of people focus first on the brands, right? To think about, oh, they'll take the lead. Our experience is that actually the suppliers of materials and machinery, the tech suppliers, those are the people taking the lead. They have all these technologies developed already. Jones and Vining already has a recycling program for many, many years. Now they are also seeing how their whole production sequence could be much less wasteful. And that's one of the reasons why they came up with that foam, which is for an insole, which is a very logical combination with your last. So it's really interesting for me. I first do like pre-talks with all these companies and dig very deep into what they do so that we know that we can get the best information into the summit. And that's when we hear a lot of things that I assume many people never knew those companies did. So, and that's also why it's really interesting. We have a complete range of companies from the very start, indeed, like raw material suppliers like Huntsman that talk about, polymers and how to use that and explain in more simple words to people the terminology of plastics, which for people is still quite difficult. But then indeed also people that make tooling like Jones and Vining. We have the people that make software. We have people that make completely new materials like Solemn. They are one of the people that I have in the materials section way at the end. And because this is like the most positive example that I could think of today, where their material is not about doing less harm. Their material is about creating a positive footprint. So how can we actually, put nutrients back into our ecosystem through the products that we wear? I mean, that's like the highest level of sustainability that we are looking at now. And this is a material that's now commercially available to the market. And it's also one of the things that we need most. It's an outsole material. And one of the things that we spoke about, which is often kind of neglected, is the effect of microplastic waste, right? So we all have these shoe soles that are rubbing on the ground, and we don't see that waste with our bare eyes. But when we measure the plastic contents in soil and everything, you do see that, and it's a very big problem. So one of the things that we've also been trying as a company is to think about how can we, for instance, encapsulate things like EVA or TPU inside like natural latex rubber or other plant-based material. And with materials like Solom is making, for instance, that's when that becomes possible. Because this is not midsole material, this is really for the outsole, that outer layer that is on the ground. And it has the same abrasion resistance as rubber. Those are all fantastic things for people to hear and very applicable. So that's also what we have in this whole summit, where, yes, we start from the bigger picture and it trickles down to more smaller things that people can do now. But in that way, it's also interesting for people that are a bit further along and already know what they want to do and hear a lot of new stuff still for them. And people that are just at the beginning, and this helps them plan their strategy as well as give them pointers for what they can do today without having to fully change your entire workflow and supply chain from day one.
Yeah, you've got all the bases covered, as we would say here. And I think what's really important is that we're moving in an era where the TEVA example is a perfect example, where you had leadership clearly dedicated to a sustainability story that directs different departments to budget in covering the costs at the outset, the seed money, if you will, for the company itself. And now that you have investor pressure, you have consumer pressure, these are all can be leveraged in a positive way to drive companies to make these decisions. Because if you're in a closet in the basement trying to do a sustainability program for a company, and there's no way you're going to be able to share that budget across a variety of different departments, but having it be top of mind for the leadership within the company and making it advantageous to the bottom line, which it sounds like it's becoming more and more, the opportunities are more and more abundant. I just think we're entering in maybe into a phase where this is starting to gather much more steam than we can even appreciate now. We'll look back at this being kind of the golden era of the launch of many companies exploring all these different opportunities to be more
Absolutely. And that's also for the people listening now. So a lot of times when we look at our sustainability summits, of course, the first people that are joining are from the development department. But I would absolutely encourage every other person sourcing, marketing, e-commerce, because we're touching on basically all those subjects. Because like you say, all those departments will be involved. We also see that when we do consulting with companies where we insist that all departments are involved. And some companies are very surprised, like, but isn't this a design thing? It might start from there. They might take the lead, but to really make this work, the entire company has to be involved. And this is something that you do not even just only within your company, together with your suppliers. And that's why for all these different parties, this is actually a fantastic summit, because everybody talks about how they work with their partners, what hurdles did they encounter, what things did they have to overcome? How did they do that then? And those are also the things that we'll have in the webinars, where we have a very nice format with people both from very large brands speaking. What I also especially paid attention to is that we don't just have people from the sports side. Of course, a lot of times we take the bigger sports brands like the Nikes and Adidases of this world. And yes, they are doing a lot. But for instance, we also talk about someone like Nicholas Kirkwood, who used to be part of LVMH, was a really high-end brand, who just decided, I'm going to take my brand back and I'm going to completely change it over and make it into the most sustainable luxury brand you could ever imagine. So, and that's quite a ballsy approach for a company like that. So, but then how do you do that? Because you can say that, but now you have to do that. And how do you take those steps? And also talking about some of the things that companies that make heels or casual footwear, what they run into, because we always talk about sneakers, and it's much easier than to talk about things like, oh, we're going to do full TPU, mono material. But as soon as you get into luxury, and now since FDRA is fully together with Fanny, I thought we also need to make sure that we have that luxury segment in there as well, and that we have people that might not have spoken yet for FDRA, so that we also get a lot of new information. Every webinar has at least one person, maybe two from one of the larger brands. Then we have like an independent expert, and it could be somebody maybe completely from outside the industry who has developed a system, especially when we're talking about waste, that's very relevant, that has developed a system that we can all use. So we're really trying to balance that you have the information from all the different angles coming in. And again, also it's people from the US and Europe. So again, even from that
Yeah.
perspective, many different people can join in.
Yeah, I think it's great. I think it's across the industry, across the world, all the ideas, pulling everything together that everybody needs to know. Again, this is probably one of the most important summits we've done to help the industry grow and get better at being greener and also optimizing operations, making better shoes at better value, at better costs. So the website that people can go to is shoesustainabilitysummit.com, shoesustainabilitysummit.com. You can see it on there every session. You can do all 3 sessions for a flat rate of $299, or you can choose one session at a time. We encourage you to do the whole series because obviously it helps build that knowledge and that wisdom that's so needed. But if you're just interested in a one-off, it's $125. We do have a deal for FDRA members. If you have five people that want to attend the summit from your company, we'll charge you for 4. You get the 5th for free. If you want to train your whole company, this is something special we're doing this year. And I've already had a few companies approach that are going to be doing this. For $3,000 flat, you can train your entire company. So all employees. So obviously it benefits if you've got 10 or more because of the price structure. But if you get like 20, 30, 40 people you want to train in your company, and I'm talking C-suite, operations, like design, I don't care if the janitor's interested in sustainability, we'll allow your whole company to be trained for $3,000. And this is the thing too, on the marketing side, then you can tell everybody on social media, you're training your whole company on sustainability to become more sustainable as a culture. And I think that's hugely important and really interesting way to look at it in that sense. So we encourage people to do that. And I'm really excited about it. Again, this is kicking off in late August. So we have a week in August. We have 2 weeks in September. And I encourage folks, if you have questions, you can reach out to FDRA and let us know if you need to know more. But we'll be updating the website with the speaker profiles and with a larger agenda as we get closer to the event. But it is the most important event this year on sustainability for footwear. It's cost effective. You don't have to travel. You don't have to go anywhere. You will definitely learn more than you expect and get ideas that can transform your work and your company for the better. So,
because I'm also super pleasantly surprised with all the collaboration and all the input that all the brands are willing to give, all the people that I've been interviewing. So for instance, yesterday, Jess, she was explaining how they, after working together with TerraCycle on their project, how they made a whole guide on design for disassembly, and that she's going to share that with all the participants as well in the summit. So this will be one of the downloadable materials that will be available. And there will be many different things actually that super practical, that the people that have already trying to find answers to all those difficult questions that they're already willing to share. Because in this case, even though we're all competing, everybody wants everybody else to also be able to achieve a better footprint, because that's
Thank you. Because that point right there is why we exist. That's why the footwear exists. That's why FDRA exists. We can all compete on the street. That's what I say. We can compete on the street for people buying the shoes. We all have the same challenges and the same problems in the factories and at the design process and development process. And if we work together there, you can come up with a great new design and a great new shoe and all the value, but we can all work together to get there together. And if we don't, then people are going to spend more money than they need to, and the value is not going to be there, and we're going to keep spinning our wheels. So I feel like this is there's a lot of marketing hype out there on shoes around sustainability. This segment and this summit lives up to the hype. So again, I cannot encourage people to know. And I also, and we need to hype this a lot more too, is retailers need to join this too. Like, obviously we're talking a lot about product development and processes and things like that. Retailers need to join because they're misaligning what they expect the brands to do and how they want to sell it. And we need retailers in to understand the processes and the product and the materials and all those things in order for them to better market and sell what we're doing, but also to stop misconstraining brands around standards that are not realistic, that they can't hit right now. So I think the whole industry, if you got $300 in your pocket, maybe we should say, if you got $300 in your pocket, it could save you $3 million. I don't know if that's true. Don't hold me to that.
1, 2, or 3 pairs of shoes, depending on your price range.
All right, Nico. Well, listen, I hope you stay cool there. We really appreciate your partnership and the work that we do together to make the industry stronger. And I'm excited to have this year digitally, but next year, already knowing we're planning some stuff. Don't want to let the cat out of the bag, but could be Innovation Summit in Barcelona.
I was about to say, you're all welcome in Barcelona.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely Materials and Sustainability Summit. Hopefully in Portland in August. We'll try to work with a materials show like we've done in the past before COVID to make that happen. But stay tuned. But shoesustainabilitysummit.com. Reach out to FDRA, most important summit of the year for the entire industry. Sign up, $300. Again, Nico, thank you so much. Really appreciate you joining us today.
Thank you, guys. Thank you for all the great work that you guys are doing, because it's amazing. You're the most active, what do you call it, lobby organization that I've ever seen. Yeah.
Thank you. All right. Folks, it's a Shoe and Show. We cover the ins and outs of all things footwear. Shoeandshow.com is the website to see the entire catalog of these great episodes. Drop us a line if you want to be a guest, or if you have any ideas on new topics we should discuss. Please be safe. Please be healthy. Please get your shot. If you're in a bad area, please wear your mask. Please be safe and healthy. And until next time, Shoe In is out.
Shoe In has been brought to you by the FDRA, the Footwear Industries Association focused on retail, trade, politics, and fashion, helping create and enhance conversations on all things footwear. For information about FDRA, visit fdra.org.